Welcome back. In this module, we will learn about digital media and the various sources of income. As you all know that we are looking at various mass media and we are looking at those mass media from three lenses. How mass media are profit centered, how technological changes has affected production, delivery and distribution, and how mass media it affects politics, society and culture. And in this module will specifically look at digital media and the internet. Can someone think of what you mean by digital media? Well, digital media is any media that can be encoded in a machine readable format. All emerging media that combines text, graphics, audio, and video using computer technology can be termed digital media. Digital media can be easily created, it can be easily distributed, it can be easily manipulated as well, and these are the characteristics of digital media. So basically what digital media does is it pretty much breaks things into zeros and ones. So practically everything that we are talking about, text can be made into zeros and ones, audio signals can be made into zeros and ones, video signals can be made into zeros and ones, and any color can be made into zeros and ones, and that is what is digital media. And with the use of computer technology, it is changing the way how people live itself. So let's get started with today's class, and I just thought this was a good um, slide to start with. Customers who bought this item also bought. This is not online, this is physically when someone goes to shop, and if you can see something like this is how it's a kind of a nice meme, but this is how life is changing, how we are so much exposed to this particular phrase. It can also sometimes be in our physical world as well. I think it's a very good meme, and I thought it was an interesting one to share with this class. So let's move on to the first slide, okay? And this is my first slide, and basically what the aim of this class is, we're going to look at the convergence aspect of digital media, we're going to look at the disruptive technology of digital media, and we're also going to look at the three potential sources of income through the world wide web. So let's get started with digital media. As I told you, digital media is any media that can be encoded in a machine readable format. But this was a theory that was proposed way back in the 1970s by scholar Nicholas Negroponte, where he said, see, in 1970s, you had the television and movie industry that was separate. Like, no, this was the first circle that represents the television and broadcast industry. And then there was separately the book industry, the newspapers and magazines and books that actually existed as an independent state or independent medium. And the third was the computer industry, which also was by itself, and there was only very small little overlap that was happening in these areas. So it was all separate. Number one, broadcast and TV and cinema was by itself, newspaper, books and magazines were by itself, and computer industry was by itself, and there was a little overlap. But he proposed in 1970 that in 2000 it will going to be completely different, where there's going to be so much overlap that it's hard kind of each of the separate entities to be by itself, but rather it will be overlapping in each other. He proposed this in 20 years prior to the development of all this stuff, and this is what actually helped kind of change the structure or the framework of the approach to the industry itself. And right now this is how it looks like. There is so much of overlap, we cannot hardly distinguish between what happens with these three industries, and this is what precisely is convergence. We are looking at the melding of the communication industry, the computer industry and the electronic industry, that is all coming together and overlapping so much that all this medium which was independent by itself few decades back are now overlapping so much it's hard to distinguish these from other media. So that is how things have developed so much, and that is what is convergence, which was proposed by Nicholas Negroponte, who actually gave this theory as a theory of convergence, where he saw the potential of the intersection of various media and identified the trend much before it could really happen. And also he is also the pioneer of one laptop per child, where he feels that every child should have access to internet and should have access to computers so that they can get and reap the benefits of the internet and the world wide web. And the next point I want to talk to you is about how this digital media as also being a disruptive technology. What do you mean by disruptive technology? A new emerging technology that replaces an existing one. For instance, if I'm going to say, like, I'm using a pen, and I'm using pencil. So both exist, right? So pen is also there, pencil is also there. But if you're going to introduce something that is going to make pen and pencil obsolete, that is disruptive. So what happens is, if a technology is completely taking that away from the market, that's disruptive. And let's just look at some examples. Okay, for instance, this is a prototype of a typewriter way back in the 1860s, and look at how crude it is. You had all the letters on top, and you have to press on these letters, and it makes a mark on the paper. And this is how it was developed. And it took so many years, excuse me, and it took several years for typewriter to change itself, evolve over so many decades, to a state that we see even till the late 70s and 80s. The typewriter was pretty much very much in use, and it's still being used in many countries, because still they feel that typewriter is a nice medium to get some things done. But I think it's completely obsolete in developed countries, and this was made possible by this word processor, which was actually introduced in Japan. Word processor completely displaced the typewriters. This is a disruptive technology. And this was introduced way back in the 1970s, and this is an Toshiba brand. And word processors completely changed or removed typewriter from the sales market, where in some countries it's being still used, but in a very minimal level. I think it's completely antiquated in the United States. Maybe you'll have some piece as kind of an antique piece, but it's not in use anymore. The next thing is, I want you to answer this. Okay, Wikipedia is a disruptive technology. What do you think it displaced? For everything, if I know, suddenly, even the other day I was talking with my sister about somebody, and she immediately looked up. Yeah, we were discussing about DJ Khaled, and she want to know, hey, is DJ Khaled is from America, or is from Middle East, because he has a Muslim name, and he's got good songs. And she immediately looked up Wikipedia. Then she said, oh, his parents are from Palestine, but he was born somewhere in the south. So this is how Wikipedia is making things easier. But what do you think it displaced? This is a disruptive technology. You know what it displaced? It pretty much displaced Britannica Encyclopedia. I remember back in those days, this was such a big deal. If you walk into any rich people's house, they will have Britannica stacked from shelf to shelf, and this was a big deal back then, and it was so expensive. And it was a treasure trove of information. It practically had everything under the sun. But I think with Wikipedia in place, I think this has completely become pointless. As well as, even though there's so much of information online, Wikipedia streamlined the content and practically brought everything under the world into its fold. And that's what it was. It can be considered disruptive technology. See how it displaced Britannica Encyclopedia. So let's look at another thing. I want you to think of mass media industries and identify few disruptive technologies. So we looked at newspapers and magazines and radio and television and movies, and think of some of the gadgets, think of some of the features that was disruptive. I think we discussed so many things. I want you to look at and discuss, for take some time and find out what can you possibly think of. Okay, so let's I mean, this will be a good exercise, critical exercise for you to think of what a disruptive technology is. A disruptive technology is any technology that replaces or completely moves another product out of the market, and that's a disruptive technology. We looked at two aspects. We looked at how Wikipedia completely displaced Britannica encyclopedia. We also looked at how word processors completely displaced typewriters. So let's move on. Let's look at the first one. Okay, MP3. So as you all know, MP3 is a very popular music format, but it completely replaced these. When I think millions and millions of CDs and vinyls and tape recorders and cassette recorders was so much popular, but then when MP3 technology came, it completely displaced those plastic audio tapes. And yes, audio CD is still there, but I think its relevance is actually losing prominence slowly. But it completely displaced those plastic magnetic tape recorders as well as vinyl as well. So MP3 is a disruptive technology. And another one is Fujifilm. I think I grew up, taking photographs using these kind of films, where they used to sell it as ISO 100, 200, and ISO 300 and ISO 400, depending upon the low light situation. For instance, if I'm going to shoot at very low light situation, I'll be using ISO 400, and if I'm doing shoot on a bright sunny day, it will be ISO 100. And these color films, they actually was displaced by another one. I think this was displaced by this little guy called the CMOS chip, which is nothing but complementary metal oxide semiconductor chip, which is almost there in all DSLR cameras and other video cameras. Also, there's another chip called CCD, which is also the charge coupled device. These pretty much do the same thing as a typical analog films, where they capture images, and this completely displaced all those traditional film negatives, where it has to be exposed to light and then developed later in a lab. So again, this CMOS chip or a CCD chip is a disruptive technology. And again, flash drives, again, this again can be called a disruptive technology, because it displaced floppy disk. This was a kind of a rave at one point. I remember a day when one of my friend brought this and said, man, I got a floppy disk and it can store up to like 2 MB, blah blah blah, and he was raving about it. Please don't touch it. Like, he was thinking as if it was the best thing in the world, but I think now nobody even uses it. But it's still considered to be a very safe way. I think even in NASA, some of the stuff are stored here, because it is not. It's not. It's a feature that cannot be easily hacked. But yeah, it's still very much being used, but in a very very limited situation. I think practically it has gone away from mass consumption usage. And again, we are growing so much in state of data. As I told you, digital media is any media that can be encoded in a machine readable format. Look at, in 2009 it's about zero point 0.8 zettabyte, but right now we are looking at about 7.9 zettabyte. Just to kind of put things in perspective, for instance, if you're looking at your email attachment, okay, if you're able to send an email attachment, I think the maximum capacity is about 15 MB. See, we'll go like 1 KB, and we go about 1 MB, and then you go about 1 GB, and then you go to 1 TB, and then you go to 1 PB, uh, where PB is a petabyte, and then you have yottabyte and exabyte and zettabyte, and it goes on and on. I mean, I'm not sure about the thing, but it's something like that. I think zettabyte, after zettabyte is yottabyte. And again, we are looking at growth of data so much. Imagine we are storing text, we are storing graphics, we are storing audio, we are storing video, we are combining everything and storing it. So everybody needs storage, yeah, and this is what is big money. And right now this storage cost is also gone down so much, but we need so much of data that invariably will be storing, will be space wasting a lot of money on storing data. For instance, this is just a screenshot of my email. It's almost full. I've got 91% of my Gmail is full. And if you look at all the other details also, I guess I have to start paying money for my storage, because I'm practically out of my space. And I am contemplating buying an 100 gig, because it's only $2 a month and I don't mind spending that. But invariably I'm trying to postpone this, but with so much of data I have to store, I think invariably I have left with no other option than to pay up for storing my data, which eventually is how people make money. So going back, how it's profit centered. So they first give you free, okay, use it, then you start using it so much then you cannot live without it. So, and that's what is happening in terms of technology. Again, this is nothing but a regular printer which we do on a regular daily basis, but this one completely displays these printers which were used to take printouts. Imagine every time you have to take a printout, we have to go to the shop and get some printouts like this. But now with laser printers and and inkjet printers, we can pretty much print anything in the comfort of your house, and this was made possible because of printers like this. And again, so there are so many things we can talk about disruptive technology, but understand, any technology that replaces the existing one, it can be called a disruptive technology. And the last thing I want to talk to you is about the potential of internet as a marketplace to make money. So we're going to look at the various sources of how money is made on the internet. And the first and way where internet makes it most of its money is through providing internet. Okay, so also known as the ISP, which is internet service provider. This is the major source of income for the people in the internet business, and that's how they also make the most. Imagine everybody who uses Wi-Fi and all that, it's shell about like close to $100 every month for using the data and all that, and that's the major source of income for the internet. The next thing is how they make money. You might also understand is, the commerce that's involved. For instance, look at the transaction, Amazon and eBay and everything is made online, and that's how also people in the business use the online platform also to make money, where they buy products and sell products and also use it as a platform. Amazon was just started in a very small way, but right now it's a multi-billion dollar which has a global presence. And similarly, eBay, Amazon is mostly geared towards like professional organizations, and eBay is mostly towards like individual customers, as well as some companies also do that, but then it caters to different kind of audiences. And again, things are changing so much here. For instance, I can tell you a story. What happens is, recently this happened somewhere in the Midwest. A guy, he walked into Target, he said, "I demand to see the manager right now." And the guy said, "Yes, I'll go bring my manager." And when the manager came, he just went on a rant saying, "How dare you send me promotions for pregnancy and baby products? What do you think you are? Just because you have marketing stuff, you can send all these details? Don't you have any reason why you're sending all this stuff?" Then the manager apologized, "Sir, it's all kind of computerized, automated, and I really apologize, and we'll make sure we'll stop sending those details to your address." But then after a couple of months, he came back and apologized for his awkward behavior and said he has a 13-year-old girl, and apparently she is pregnant, which was possibly monitored by all the Amazon, by the online metrics. and algorithm, and based on the shopping and visiting sites, they send all the stuff to that particular house thinking they required all that. But his father was not under the impression that his teenage daughter was actually pregnant and was looking at online products and trying to look at buy all the stuff, which invariably was feeding into the metrics, and thereby those marketing promotion materials was sent to the address. So look at how things are changing also. So we're buying a lot of stuff online, and also that's being tracked as well. So there's a lot of things that happens in terms of technology and how it kind of affects you and me. And for instance, this is, I don't know if any of you are familiar with this. These are called the dash from Amazon, wherein there are so many dash buttons where you can pretty much buy anything you want. For instance, you can buy a dash button for Tide. So when you're using Tide and you're out of Tide, all you have to do is, you don't have to go online to a site or click any button. All you have to do is press this button and it comes to your house the next day through Prime or anything. But make sure you keep the dash buttons away from your kids, because if they keep pressing several times, and you're going to end up with a ton load of Tide, and you'll have to shell out a lot of money, and you don't want to end up doing that. So this is all the dash button that's very much at work. And also it uses the Internet of Things, where it is just the communication that happens between machine to machine to make our life simpler and easier, and sometimes even miserable. So the second potential source of income is on the web, where advertisers are trying ways to reach people. Okay, so we said television audience executives are trying to sell the audience to advertisers, but in terms of web, the advertisers are finding ways to reach out potential audiences. For instance, every time you watch YouTube, you'll have to invariably sit through several seconds of stupid ads, which is how the advertisers are reaching out to us. So invariably, those are some of the techniques they're trying to find to reach us. For instance, when I try to reach some newspaper sites, I'm forced to answer some questions. When was the last time did you shop or anything on so and so? When was the last time did you ever come across an ad like this? So I'll have to answer like a bunch of questions just to read an article for like 30 seconds. So advertisers are finding some new innovative ways to reach their audiences. They're still experimenting, but still it's very much in the experimental stage. And as I know, told you, internet is all about tracking. Don't ever think you are alone. You are being constantly watched, and like it or not, this is the harsh reality of the internet. Nobody's life is private. If you are online, you're practically online. Don't think, oh, it's only in my phone, I can't do anything. How many times we have seen the leaked photos of so many celebrity stars, Kate Upton and Jennifer Lawrence and so many other people? How is it possible? It's because it's all online, even though it's in your phone. Once it's in your phone, it's technically online. That's why we have to be very careful with what we say and do online. So it's something that you cannot take it for granted. There are ad robots who are constantly listening to what we are doing and saying. You may not know it, but it is what it is. I can show you a couple of examples. For instance, see, when I look up bike, okay, and immediately Google will say, oh, you can look at blade gas pocket bikes, commuter folded motorbike, and 80cc Dewey's bicycle. So these are the sponsored things that, based on my search engine, Google is populating all these things for my exposure, and it's exposing the advertisers to me. So this is how they try to connect the audience with the advertiser. And I try to use Bing, which is another search engine, and they also see, when I say motorbike, they give me all the aspects, like in Wayfair and Best Buy, how much is charging. I can look at where they're selling it cheap as well, and Kohl's is about only 132 39. So these are ways where people are constantly tracking what we are doing and how they can potentially reach us. Another one search is called DuckGoGo, and when I look at that, I think that's kind of very restrictive, but still they're also giving a lot of other features, like a motorbike on eBay and motorbike for sale, motorbikes and all this stuff. So again, it's all about advertisement. It's all about reaching the audience, and it's all about connecting the advertisers with the audience, which is what also is happening online. And again, this is another one. I was looking at all the Google results, and I'm a big fan of audio and video gadgets. And look at the cookie. I bought this again. It's showing me another one which is like one $535.50. So yeah, so advertising is a second potential source of web on the potential source of income on the web. And look at the just figure, the lot of money that's being invested in the internet. I think in 2000 it was about $8 billion. Right now, in 2015, we're looking about $51 billion. This is a figure from the textbook, but I think it has gone up several times. I think pretty, it must be around like 70 to $80 billion. So it's a big industry. And the thing that most of us think is, we are used to is like most of the content online is free. I think that's the base of internet and the web. Content is free. We can access anything anywhere. But things are slowly changing, people. We cannot expect things to be the same as it was. Things are changing. Even though New York Times is free, if I want to dig more into any of the articles in depth, I have to pay in money. But they're also giving some very good options, but still, it's all about money. Similarly, with Washington Post, I can read for free, but if I want more details, then I have to give in money and get more money. I'm sorry. If I want more details, then I have to shell out money for the content. And look at Google Chromecast Ultra. For the fact that I am into technology and all the other stuff, and again, this is a similar story with the Washington Post. And let me shoot a question. Who do you think is the largest music retailer in the United States of America? Remember, we looked at the big three music. We looked at Universal, Sony, and all that. Who do you think is the largest music retailer? Do you think that has anything to do with the big three? Absolutely not. Because iTunes is the largest music retailer in the world, not just in the United States. And again, it was the genius of Steve Jobs who foresaw that, instead of selling an entire album for people, why can't we sell just the individual song which is doing good, and thereby make money for $1, and thereby make money. And then that worked out, and that's pretty much the way where things are made money online. A lot of buy people individually songs online for $1 or $1.29. And also massively multiplayer online role-playing games is also a great way for people to make money. And this is one of the popular such uh, MMORPGs, where World of Warcraft is a big deal. There are about 10 million subscribers, and the revenue is mind-boggling, $1 billion. Yeah, this is I'm telling in 2014. And again, there are so many video games that we can talk about. How it is a kind of a big deal, and also money-making machine on the web. And again, this is another one. Star Wars, again, is a very successful franchise. They had about 1 million subscribers in 3 days. That's how a big deal these kind of MMORPGs. Guess what is the name of this game? I just have the screenshot. Let's see what is the name of this game. Well, anybody can tell this. This is, yes, Pokemon Go. You might think, oh, it's just a game, people are playing, it's a rave, everybody loves it. People, this is what is a big deal, because when people, it's all about getting the base. Okay, if we're getting a lot of people into a fold, that is money. And that's what people are making tons and tons of money. In fact, Pokemon Go, the creators of Pokemon Go, which is Niantic and Nintendo, which is based in Japan, their market value increased by $9 billion within 5 days. Of course, it just went down, but then they made the money within that particular time frame. And that's what I'm trying to show you, that it's all about money. We have looked at various sources of way which money is made. The most money that's made on the internet is through the ISPs, internet service providers. And then we looked at how the content is also made money. We looked at advertising, how it's made money. We looked at commerce, how they're making money. So there are many ways that's making money. We are also looking at cloud computing. We're looking both Microsoft and Amazon have exceeded $7 billion from just cloud hosting services. And this, they are basically targeting only all those commercial corporations. But again, it's not far behind that, that even you and me will have to shell out a lot of money for all this cloud computing services. And also we're looking at a lot of new technology that's also being, underway. See, right now we are using Wi-Fi and all that. The next thing is going to be a Li-Fi, which is very much has been in a work in progress for the last few years. So basically, instead of your regular modem and router, you will be using your data using light sources. For instance, from a light, you can get data to connect with broadband and all the other stuff. And just wherever there is light, there you can get your broadband. So you don't have to worry about, oh, I have to stay within my Wi-Fi range to get my service. But you can incorporate this into your living room and your house, wherever there is light, you can still access data. Don't ask me what if it's dark. There is always a way around. Just kind of, this is a work in progress, and Li-Fi is something that people are working in terms of how to provide broadband using light. So I posted the bunch of questions on D2L. Upload your answers by 11 p.m. tonight, and I will see you soon.